fans that, the fans should behave themselves because, they are coming. Anyway, so
Yes.
we'll be touching a little bit on that treatment and what's going to happen at the Mexican Grand Prix. Then this weekend is one of the biggest weekends in football. There is the Manchester Derby, there is the El Clasico, and all the way in Italy,
Yeah.
Inter Milan take on Roma, Napoli take on AC Milan. So big, big weekend. And we'll be talking all about that in the locker room. But before we do that, let's hear how we can be a part of this locker room, Mashe.
To be part of the locker room this morning will be for you to send us a message to a WhatsApp message on 0809-444-9981. WhatsApp messages only. And then you can race down to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Leave us a message. We also love to read from our YouTube family every time inside the locker room. Well, that's it, Tega. What's next?
Let's start with the headlines and then we'll take it from there.
On the bill this morning, we've got the 2024 Olympic qualifier. Ajibade scores stunner to rescue 1-1 draw for Super Falcons against Ethiopia. As after disqualification, Hamilton and Leclerc say checks need to change. And then West Ham's unbeaten run snap in Greece as Ranger held. And then there would be Barcelona forced to lean on youth in Madrid Classical battle as Postecoglou targets long-term success for high-flying Spurs as Man United show signs of life, but City offer real test. And then there will be traitor Lukaku awaits hostile return to leaders Inter, as there is also on the bill Newcastle Tonali banned for 10 months for betting offenses, and we know who was at the forefront of that advocacy for a ban. Tega, you
There,
are.
no, I was not, if we're saying advocacy for ban, I was not advocating for a ban, I was advocating for a jail term. Who are you
Oh,
talking
okay.
to? Have you met me? All right, so let's start before we'll eventually get to that. And now
Yes.
and then you understand why all that PR about the
Okay.
gambling addiction. But let's start with Nigeria taking on Ethiopia and the consequences of those
So
results.
for the Super Falcons, we go to now. Atletico Madrid star Rashidat Ajibade scored a superb long-range strike to rescue 1-0 draw for the Super Falcons of Nigeria in the first leg of the 2024 Olympic qualifier second round fixture against Ethiopia on Wednesday. Ajibade, who was the stand-in captain, led by example, and a stunning strike in the 52nd minute was the equalizer after Beke Amare scored in the 6th minute to give Ethiopia the lead at the Abebe
Addis
Bikila
Ababa
Stadium.
Stadium. Yeah. All
Yes.
right. So, first things first, Nigeria should have walked away with 3 points. I think Ethiopia got away with what I like to call home home tough advantage, because Nigeria did score a second goal in the dying minutes of that match. Absolutely nothing wrong with that goal. Was ruled as offside. But there's no VAR in the
Okay.
women's qualifier. In fact, there's no VAR in CAF championships. It's only when it comes to all those FIFA World Cup qualifiers that you see VAR there. So huge disappointment for the Super Falcons because they could have come away with a win. Albeit, I would say this for the Super Falcons, they looked a bit disjointed, and it's understandable. The home-based team had already arrived in Ethiopia, and then the foreign-based team started arriving in Ethiopia one after the other by themselves. So they barely had time to train with each
Yeah.
other. So they could come on the pitch, and I remember they had injuries. I mentioned the injuries they had in the midfield. Uchebe, Ayinde, the core of the midfield was injured, so they had to mix and match. So there was all that haphazard, disjointed football happening, but the quality of the Super Falcons still shone through. And the early goal, they managed to cancel that eventually with the Rashida Ajibade goal. And they did, like I say, score a winner, but that was ruled as offside. So Ethiopia, I would say Ethiopia got away with one. The second leg is on Tuesday, which is the 31st of October at 4 p.m. And that will be taking place in Nigeria. So hopefully we'll be able to wrap up the job there. And
would that be Uyo or Abuja?
Well, it's a confusion. I hear Abuja. So I don't know that it's Uyo. If it's Uyo,
okay.
you know I'll be there.
I know you. I know you and your connections. So I'm just going to put that in quickly.
If you know that if it's Uyo, I'll be there from Somekwankuko.
Okay.
But I'm hearing Abuja and
Tega. Okay. Okay, still the locker room on Smooth 98.1 FM.
So, I'm
Tega.
sorry, the connection cut off a bit. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Very good, loud and clear.
Okay, all right. So, the second, so hopefully we'll be able to wrap up the job. We won't do like Enyimba, that gave Nigerians hope, and then by halftime it was 3-0. So let's see how it turns out for the Super Falcons of Nigeria.
Okay, so before I drift on to the next item, I've just been reminded by your royal protocol officer, who you've not informed me about, but then he has to come forward to tell me here. He says, Omatseye, please call her Princess Tega. So Princess Tega, I've just been told by your royal protocol officer. And so that's taken now. Are you okay, Emeka? That's it. So let's go on to the next story now. So it goes on, this next story here. It says, after disqualification, Hamilton and Leclerc say checks needs to change. And so going on, half the cars that took part in last week's United States Grand Prix would have been disqualified if everyone had been tested for one skid blocks, as Louis Hamilton said on Thursday.
Remember when I said this after the disqualification, I said they had said that the Grand Prix, the track is a bit tough on cars. And so everybody has said that, which is why there were degradation questions in the build up to the race itself. But like I also said, they don't check all cars. They randomly select cars that they will check. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever, depending on who you are. If you're Sergio Perez, it was fortunate that they checked Lewis Hamilton's car.
Yes.
If you're Lewis Hamilton, it was unfortunate that they checked your car. Unfortunately for them, they only checked those cars. Now, of the cars that they checked, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton's car were disqualified. Now, we know that if they've checked every single car on the grid, at least 8 of those cars would have been disqualified because the degradation on the floor of most cars were pretty much damaged. And so if you're Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, of course you feel like you got the short end of the stick. But this has always happened. You know, they pick for these checks, you know, for the weight, for the fuel, they take from every car. But for checks like this, some of these checks, they pick random cars to check. And I'm sure Lewis Hamilton was chosen because of the speed he had last weekend. Again, it feels a bit unfair, but this is how it's always been. So yes, I agree with him. I agree with Charles Leclerc. I agree with Lewis Hamilton. If they had checked all the cars on the grid, chances are more cars would have been disqualified for what they were disqualified for. But according to the laws, according to what they do, according to their regular status quo, they just picked random cars, and unfortunately, their cars failed those tests. So I understand them calling for check everybody, so that, you know, it's better if you lose points and everybody else loses points. But if you lose points and there's some people that could have lost points that didn't lose points, it can be very painful.
I remember, you know, it's like writing a test and then you were satisfied when everybody else fails the test and like, yes, yay, you'll be so happy.
Then they'll do a rewrite test for everybody, but really at a disadvantage ultimately. But it is what it is. I think what they need to do is focus on this weekend, which is the Mexican Grand Prix. Like I said, Hamilton did look like he had the opportunity to win a few points, because had that result from last week stood, it would have just been 19 points between himself and Sergio Perez, and there would have been an opportunity for him to go second if he performed well. Unfortunately, he hasn't been given that lottery. So it can be painful. And there is a difference between finishing as the second place driver in the championship and the third place driver. So it can be painful, but yeah, it's been said. But what they have to do this weekend is go at it again and see if they can improve their car, at least for next season. Because the way that Red Bull have dominated this season, and the fact that they've already gone ahead to be planning next year's car. A lot of people are bringing upgrades for this year's car. And Red Bull, because of the advantage that they had and the pace that they have, they've already started work on next season's car. So I think what they need to do is focus on this weekend and the Mexican Grand Prix, see if they can push to get better results and see how it can take from there. On the other hand, speaking about Red Bull, a lot of fans have been angry about the treatment of Sergio Perez. And so they are going to Mexico now, his home country. And Red Bull has been a bit skeptical. So they've hired bodyguards for Christian Horner, for Max Verstappen, especially for their drivers, because they feel like the Mexican fans are going to come at them for their treatment of Sergio Perez. And I'm wondering why they had to make such a big deal about it and, make such huge news about it. But it did happen that at the start of the season, Sergio Perez was competing with Max Verstappen. Then he made the mistake of saying, I think I'm going to go for the World Championship. And from then on out, it was one misfortune after the other. If he was not driving his car into the barrier or losing control of his car,
Tega, I guess we would have to, after this time out.
There was reliability issue. There was a reliability issue. So I think for Mexico, they had to get the bodyguards. But it would be interesting to see how their reception will be all through the weekend. When we come back, we'll be talking more about other stories.
So you can also, let's get your message come on to the locker room this morning as Princess Tega is getting ready for those messages. Come as they will on 0809 444 0809 444 9981 will be for WhatsApp messages, and then leave us a message on youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos.
The title from King is reserved only for the chosen. Someone else carries an order worth its weight.
Omas, I think we'll run through the next few stories. We don't have all this time. We'll run through the next few stories.
Showcase on DSTV and GoTV. They offer mind-blowing hyper bonus. So it's an accumulator bet, and they want your winnings. They go up with our 1,000% bonus. After all, 1,000%. So what's it they wait for? Visit OneXpert.ng to use promo code Hyper Nigeria to get 300% bonus up to 189,218 now, and take advantage of hyper bonus from OneXpert. So go brown, anytime they are around, if they're pushing power, to not have power. Not pay for what they pay from people. Anytime they bow, so that's by me. But you know, Tega, now Salina Healthcare Limited, the market hub. This is Small Breakfast on your dial, just the way you like it. Satisfaction guaranteed.
We're smooth 98.1 FM. As we're back inside the locker room as Tega, Princess Tega Onojiafe still with us this morning as we drift away now to more issues coming in inside the locker room. Tega.
So let's dive straight into the next stories because we are pretty much out of time. Yeah.
All right, so let's go over now to West Ham's unbeaten run snap in Greece as West Ham's 17-match unbeaten European run came to an end on Thursday with a 2-1 loss away to Olympiacos, while Rangers battled for a point in a goalless Europa League draw at Sparta Prague.
Yes, so Europa League, yes, Thursday night football people were on yesterday, and West Ham had pretty much had a great run. All up to when they won the Conference League last season and then in the Europa this season. But they met Olympiacos, and I did think that was going to be a tough fixture for them. Olympiacos got a 2-goal lead in the first half. I think the second goal that they considered was the worst timing of all. Barring the fact that it was an own goal, it was also literally the last kick of the ball before halftime. You don't want to be conceding a goal then. But they managed to pull one back. Looked like they were going to be able to come away with at least a draw. Unfortunately, Olympiacos held on. So that unbeaten run in Europe is done for them. On the other hand, Brighton had a great time. They seem to have struggled in the earlier parts of Europa, but I think they're getting a hang of it now. Albeit they played against the almighty Ajax, who have now fallen really low. We're hearing that Ajax are looking to poach the Arsenal assistant coach. So maybe their fortunes will turn around when they have him. But yeah, Ajax are in a really deep problem right now, and Brighton took advantage of that. They won against them. Liverpool also blitzing through the Europa. In fact, a lot of people are expecting that Liverpool will win Europa the way that they're blitzing through it. But let's see how that pans out. But all in all, good weekend for most of the English teams in Europe. Well, apart from West Ham.
And that takes us to this next story here, waiting. This is Postecoglou targets and long-term says he's more concerned about laying the groundwork for sustainable success at Tottenham than the immediate chance.
Yeah, so, but first of all, we skipped El Clasico. El Clasico, we'll get back to El Clasico then. But let me talk about the Tottenham, because they're playing in a London derby against Crystal Palace this evening. And so Postecoglou has started this season in an amazing way, especially given the fact that they lost Harry Kane in the transfer market at the start of the season. And then the results that they had last season, struggling to even get wins and make top 4 and all of that. However, Postecoglou has come in and he's completely turned the fortunes of Tottenham Hotspur around. It's not just, he doesn't have all those star players. He doesn't have that go-to player that if he wants to get a result, he say, give the ball to this person. No, every single member of his team is doing their job perfectly. It looks like a perfectly managed team. Son may not even complete the game and the result or the performance would not change. Richarlison may not start and the result and the performance will not change. That midfield somehow has just found a way to work its magic. And so it's such a brilliant moment for Tottenham Hotspur now, sitting pretty at the top of the Premier League table. And because they're playing against Crystal Palace, it looks like they could get a result against Crystal Palace. However, it's a London derby, so wait to see how Friday night football will deal with Tottenham. But I'm happy with what he's saying. He's looking long-term. He's not looking at, making top 4 this season or winning the Premiership this season. He's thinking of over a number of years. Can we dominate? Can we be a top-class team? And I like that thinking because it looks like he's building something there.
This takes us to Spain. La Liga champions Barcelona, whose bitter rivals Real Madrid in the first Clásico of the season on Saturday, forced into leaning heavily on players from the Peter La Masia Youth Academy.
All right, really tough one for Barcelona. This would have been the perfect El Clasico. Both teams, I think, separated by 1 point at the top of the table. There's a rivalry here. Barcelona is holding the championship. Real Madrid wants it back. So really tough one, and it would have been good to see, Jude Bellingham, a great guy in form, against the Barcelona team, who have somehow managed to get results out of every game. But unfortunately, injuries. Pedri's out, Sergio Roberto is out, Lewandowski is out. We don't even know if Gavi will be back. We're hearing Rafinha will be back. It's a whole row of talents that Barcelona is missing. In fact, for their UEFA Champions League match against Shakhtar, they invited 8 of their academy players. 8 all academic players. So it's a good thing that La Masia is still bringing up youthful talent, because it would have been tough for Barcelona, seeing the amount of players they have out through injuries. But regardless of that, an El Clasico is still an El Clasico. Regardless of the number of injuries that Barcelona have, because they're facing Real Madrid, they'd want to put their best foot forward. So as much as the injuries are tough on Barcelona, I still think this is going to be a good watch. Real Madrid taking on Barcelona. I do believe, however, that Real Madrid have the advantage. So wait to see how that pans out on Saturday afternoon.
Okay, and that takes us back to England, where Manchester United season has sputtered into second gear with a run of 3 successive victories. But the skeptics are not convinced that Eric Ten Hag's side faced the ultimate test of their credentials at home at Manchester City this weekend.
All right. So remember all the heroics of Onana over the week, and then Harry Maguire too scoring. Manchester United have just somehow, they've not been impressive. They've not been dazzling. They've not by any way or in any way boosted confidence of the people that support the team. But they've been getting the results. However, they come up against a Manchester City side who have had their own struggles, though. With Kevin De Bruyne out through injury and Erling Haaland going on that goal drought before he was able to score in back-to-back matches. They've also had their mixed performances too. However, if you look at the pedigree of the Manchester City side, the quality of the team, and the way they've played their football, despite some of the wobbles they've had, you still say it's advantage Manchester City in this Manchester derby. Every day of the week and twice on the Sunday evening, which is when they're going to play. So it's going to be a tough ask for Eric Ten Hag and his men to get a result. But it's the Manchester derby. There's going to be more than 3 points on the line. There's going to be bragging rights and pride. I still think anybody predicting this one would say Manchester City is definitely coming away with the win. But Manchester United can make it a tough time for them. It's just so unfortunate, Manchester United having a good run of results, and then they come to meet Manchester City. Really tough one for them. They would have liked to have any other. They would have liked to play any other team right now and see if they can still build the momentum and get some good run of results. Unfortunately, they're meeting Manchester City side right now. You're thinking about the fact that Anthony is not giving his best performance. Rashford, if I say Rashidi, oh God, Tega, I've fallen for the fans. But Rashford is not performing also at his best despite the huge salary. Martial is not even considered good enough to start most matches. So there's a lot of questions around the team side, but I still think because it's the derby, Manchester United will put up a tough one. I do, however, think that Manchester City is winning this one.
There's a whole lot to look out for fans in England and, of course, in Spain. There is the Clasico, and then there will be the tale of two Manchesters at the end of the day. So that leads us to traitor Lukaku awaits full-star return to leaders at this moment. So walk us through what's making him a traitor in this case.
All right. So remember last season how he, after the Inter Milan debacle, had a great season with Inter Milan. He in fact, he dissed Chelsea and said, oh, he loved Inter Milan, and then Chelsea kicked him out, and then he went to Inter Milan. And then after the season was over, he was looking to get a trade, and all of a sudden, I don't know how it happened, why it happened, he wasn't taking calls from his teammates. In fact, his teammates were shocked that, I mean, even if you wanted to move, you can't be quarreling with us. We are the guys that saved you from having no career when Chelsea kicked you out. So it was shocking to them, especially how it happened. And eventually the move that he was anticipating was going to work out didn't work out. And then he was now looking for a way to go back to Inter Milan. Of course, they were not going to take him back. The good news for him was that Roma are in a desperate situation. They take anybody at this point in time. And so it was available to them. He's scoring for Roma. He's having a good time in Roma. But of course, Inter Milan fans, Inter Milan players, they are not happy with him. So he's going to be facing people that are not very happy with him, and he's not found a way to make up with this weekend. And the best way to respond to that kind of situation will be to bang in a few more goals. And Jose Mourinho will be Jose Mourinho will be very happy if he can score.
This is not a homecoming at all for Lukaku, but then I don't know how he survived.
But also Napoli taking on AC Milan, that's also going to be a great watch. So it's a big weekend in Italy. Hopefully there'll be big results for one side or the other.
Throw this guy under the bus for us as we close the locker room now. Tonali banned for 10 months instead of going to prison.
I would say this, it was a good PR work because immediately this thing comes out, Tonali's communications department got into action. This is why I think you should be proactive with your PR. Got into action and said, oh, he had a gambling addiction. He's going to be going for therapy now, because the offense he's committed was very grievous. He not only was he betting on an illegal platform, but he was betting on teams he played for. He was playing for AC Milan and he bet on those teams. So that could also be considered match fixing because he could have done anything to make his bet come true. So this was jail. He was jail time he was looking at. However, his lawyers, his agent, they were able to get ahead of the situation. And then they were able to come out and say, oh, it's an addiction. He's ready to repent. Bottom line, and he also, of course, gave information because, like I said, there are about 40 players or 40 other people involved in this betting scandal.
So Tonali, is the show plug then? Is the plug of it?
I don't know if he's the plug, if it's the socket, but he's heavily involved. And so he's, of course, he's also squealed to the FA. So he's gotten a 10-month ban, which is good news for him because jail time was it.
So finally, let's get messages in from Tayo. I see Tayo saying, if Real Madrid lose to Barcelona, then there is a problem. The banter will be epic and loud that it will spill into grapevine. After selling pitch grass, they are now selling stadium seats as takeaway memorabilia. They've exhausted all economic levers. Lukaku interview was premature. Don Tonali had football authorities kissing his ring. Talk about class and strategy. That's how Tayo puts it.
I'm telling you, get a good lawyer and a good PR agent.
Yes, that AY from Oniru tells us, my Ansu Fati stocks at Brighton are beginning to yield positive dividends. My boy is beginning to prove himself and he will only get better. AY from Oniru. And Chimobi would wrap up the locker room this morning with this. And it says, congrats to Real Madrid in advance as they will trash Barcelona by 4-0 that I can tell you for free. Even Queen Tega will agree with me on this prediction while I wish my darling Arsenal the very best of luck this weekend. #LockerRoom92. It's a wrap, Tega.
Thank you for sending in these messages. We'll see you all on Monday.
Bring the banters. We're ready for them. Big Bass Bulls on Monday. All right, Tega, have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who was part of it, those who sent messages and those who listened. Join us again on Monday for the locker room at 8:15 a.m. on Smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Good morning.